Hello, welcome back. Today I want to talk about bullying, and bullying as it's just such a taboo topic. It's almost like you're not allowed to talk about or even mention the word bullying. I know certainly in the job I was in, if you ever mentioned the word bullying, you had loads of people jumping on you saying you can't say that. That's not a thing to say, which is just very strange for me because if you're being bullied, um, and you're highlighting bullying behaviour and you're proving bullying behaviour and you're presenting it in written form, of course it's bullying behaviour. But what has actually happened then is that the system is gaslighting you. The system is saying, no, what you think is happening isn't happening. It's in your head and they do nothing about it. So what I've observed in large companies especially, what they tend to do is they have a huge management system. So they'll have a normal junior manager or middle manager, then they'd have a manager over them, then they'll have senior management, and this will be a different area, and then there'll be different areas with the same kind of system. And what's actually happening is that the junior manager has been told what to do. Now, you could turn around and say, well, it's not the junior manager's fault. My own feeling is if I was a manager, I'd be confident enough and I'd be aware of policies enough to be able to say to the manager who told me to go in and bully that person, well, actually, that's illegal. I'm not really comfortable to do that. And I have come across managers like that in the past who have refused to perform a specific action against an individual because they highlighted the fact that it was illegal. Now, what happens then is that manager's, going back in, let's go back and remember our toxic workplace. That manager then is run out. They're basically, ranks are closed, they don't get support, and they're out on their own. And sadly, that's what happens. That manager ends up leaving or moving to a different area. In my previous job, I've proven bullying multiple times. Multiple times. I've been bullied. Interestingly, so some manager comes in and he tells me to do something and I'll say no because it breaches policy, which is my right, which anyone has the right to say, especially it's within the law. If for example, if something breaches health and safety, it's you're legally as accountable as the person telling you to do it if you do it. So really, that's the thing. I'd be very strong on that. I'd stand my ground and say no. But bad managers don't like that. They don't like you to say no to them. So what they tend to do then is maybe not the individual manager, but they'll go back up to their manager then get tick with them. So remember the toxic workplace, they'll get angry with them and they'll bully them, and that manager then's annoyed with me because I made him go back and tell such and such, and then he gets really tick and it just gets worse and worse and worse. So what I've done is I've documented. I've actually been guilty of recording phone calls. I've caught them in recorded phone calls bullying me. Still have the recordings. You want to hear them? I presented this to the senior manager, and the senior manager said, "What do you want me to do about it?" And I just went, "Your job." And that that doesn't go down well, as you can imagine. So a very toxic manager then is not going to be told to do that job by someone like me. But actually, one point being is they will have that minion there. We call them minions because they're working for them, and they can become what you visualize as your bully. But what's actually happening is that there's a systemic bullying. So the bullying is so normalised and so rampant and so widespread that the person at the top is probably bullying the people at the bottom, and each of them are bullying each other and each of them bullying other, and then we're just meant to put up with it because that's just the way it is. But if you win your case, which I have loads of times, I presented bullying, showed it to them, and what happens is before any action can be taken, what they will do is they will move that bully to a different area so that bully's no longer over you. Then they can go and say, well, we did our bit, we protected him and we moved it. Oh, that's grand. And the next person comes in, and the next person is also told by the manager to bully that person. Do you know what I'm saying? So what actually happens is the bullying never actually goes away. It just moves. It moves to different people. And I just I just see this as what happened with the Catholic Church in Ireland. Not as seriously as the victims there, but I'm talking about how they managed it. They moved the priests around as if that was going to solve the problem. But what actually happened is they moved the problem, and the problem just got worse in that area, and so on and so on and so on. And that's what's actually happening in these huge companies. Instead of addressing the problems, which I've highlighted nationally to the chief executive officer at one stage, and I was answered, I done a survey, or let's call it a survey of staff, and I highlighted the fact that there was huge amounts of bullying. And instead of saying, oh, well, let's look at that, let's actually try and resolve this, let's see how we can help you, lads, I was asked, where's my critical appraisal, or where's my such and such? I'm like, what are you talking about? Why aren't you addressing the issue here? So, first of all, bullies exist. If you feel you're being bullied, you are probably being bullied. It's not in your head. You're obviously being gaslit, because then they're saying to you, sure, what's in, what you think is happening isn't really happening. You're just a bit fucking, you're just a bit mad in the head or something like that, So, the point is, you are not mad in the head. You are probably experiencing systemic bullying, and there's really nothing in any policy anywhere. And this is what makes it very clever. There's nothing in any policy anywhere to address systemic bullying, because essentially it does not exist. Because once it's not written down, it didn't happen. It doesn't exist. But it actually does exist. And how it exists is the people in that position will use their power to use their people under them, their underlings or their minions or whatever you want to call them, their subordinates, to bully people who they visualise as a threat to them. And then that person will be moved, and that person will be moved, and that person will be moved. And in 18 years in my previous job, I've been bullied for 16 at least of those years. And I have reams of paperwork to prove that fact. And it's been highlighted and it's presented to management, and they have done nothing. So as I say to you, if you're being bullied in a job, it's very serious in your mental health. You're possibly going to get nowhere, and it's not the job to be in if that's what's happening. And I know I was involved in a social media group recently where the lads in my previous job were arguing the fact that we should not be highlighting how negative and how bad the job is, because we're preventing intake and new people coming in. But my felt sense is we need to protect not only the people that are still there, but we need to protect people that could potentially come in. And I've been contacted because when you're in that role, you get a lot of people coming up to you asking you, I'd love to get into that job. How should I apply for that job? Or I'm going to get into that job. It's two extremes. It's either I couldn't do that job or I'm mad to do that job. And 100% of the time I've said to the people, and there are lads actually in the job now that I've said it to their face, this is not the job to be in. I know, and I've even said to lads that have come in day one and said, they're really keen, they're really nice people, and they're really fresh and happy and really good mental health. And they'd say to me, I love this job. I don't know how you could feel that it's horrible, it's a terrible job. And I'd say, I've said to them, I will give you 1 year, and in 1 year's time, I will talk to you again. And a year later, nearly to the day, I will have talked to that person and they will be exactly the same. 1 year, lads, is a very sad testament to what your job is. It's not even, you're not even getting a year out of people before you're destroying them. You're destroying their mental health, you're destroying the will to go on. So I suppose the point being is that if you are aware there's bullying in your organisation, highlight it. Bullying is not a swear word, it's not a negative word. It's this idea of, if you say they're bullying, they can come after you and sue you. I will say you're bullying me because I have proof, and I have a lot of proof. And essentially I was bullied out of the job, and I have WRC cases ongoing. So like, realistically, you can fight them back, and you don't have to take that bullying off them. A manager should be able to embrace you confidently, recognise your amazing skill set, you're an amazing resource. Without you, there is no service, there is no job. So realistically, they should acknowledge the fact that you are valuable, and stop with the nonsense of trying to be the most powerful person in the room, because realistically you're not. Like, I've had managers who I've been more qualified than, who tried to tell me how to do things, and that shows them up, because I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do this. And then they kind of think, oh, you're so arrogant, I hate you, this kind of stuff. But like, I'm not. I'm confident, I'm aware of my job, and I'm aware if you do that, it comes on to me. So it always goes to that situation. So It's almost creating an environment where the individual can't or is afraid to stand up for themselves. And if that's the kind of job you want, that's a terrible, terrible thing to be putting into the community. The idea that people are not confident enough to speak up for themselves and be individual. So again, rant over, but I really just put this out because I'm very aware that there are younger people in the job who are really struggling at the moment, and I've been contacted about that. And honestly, I want to say to you lads, you're not alone. 18 years in the job, and although I've kind of a greater resilience to be able to last 18 years, and really what kept me in 18 years wasn't the system and wasn't the management and wasn't the bullying and all this, it was the people. It was the staff that I worked with, and it was the patients and what I could provide to the public. But I think it's very, very sad that people are only in it a year and they're talking about leaving. And honestly, if I can help you in any way, please do contact me. Thank you for watching.